Antitrust law do not prohibit real estate salesperson within the same office agreeing on a standard commission rate. A tenant leases an apartment from a property owner because the owner failed to perform routine maintenance. The apartment building's central heating plant broke down in the fall. The owner neglected to have the heating system repaired, and the tenant had to heat for the first 6 weeks of winter. The tenant had reported this problem repeatedly to the owner. Although 8 months remained on his lease, the tenant moved out of the apartment and refused to pay any rent. If the owner sues to recover the outstanding rent, what would be the tenant's best defense? The landlord action resulted in constructive eviction. A tenant landlord planned to sell the building in which the tenant lives to the state so that a freeway can be built. The tenant's lease has expired, but the landlord permits the tenant to stay in the apartment until the building is torn down. The tenant continues to pay the rent as prescribed in the list. What kind of tenancy does this tenant have? Tenancy at will. The owner of a house wants to fence the yard for the family pet. When the fence is erected, the fencing material becomes real estate through annexation. A seller is interested in selling his house as quickly as possible and believes that the best way to do this is to have several brokers compete against each other for the commission. His listing agreement with 4 different brokers specially promised that if one of them finds a buyer for his property, he will be obligated to pay a commission to that broker only. What type of agreement has the seller entered into? Unilateral. In some states, by paying the debt at a foreclosure sale, the delinquent borrower has the right to regain the property under which of the following? Redemption. An owner of a ranch enters into a sale and leaseback agreement with a man. Which statement is true of this arrangement? The man is the lessor. A licensee is employed by a buyer. When the licensee finds a property that the buyer might be interested in buying, she is careful to find out as much as possible about the property owner and why the property is on the market. The licensee effort to keep the buyers informed of all facts that could affect a transaction is the duty of disclosure. Which situation does not violate the Federal Fair House Act of 1968? A widow insistence of renting her spare bedroom only to another widow woman. A purchaser offers to buy a seller's property by signing a purchase contract. The seller accepts the offer. What kind of title interest does the buyer have in the property at this point? Equitable. Which federal law requires that finance charges be stated as an annual percentage rate? Truth in Lending Act. A seller signed a 90-day listing agreement with a licensee. 2 weeks later, the seller was killed in an accident. What is the present status of the listing? The listing agreement was terminated automatically when the seller died. A woman conveys the ownership of an office building to a nursing home. The nursing home agrees that the rental income will pay for the expenses of caring for the woman's parent. When her parents die, ownership of the office building will revert to the woman. The estate held by the nursing home is a life estate per autre vie. A buyer signs a buyer's brokerage agreement under which the licensee will keep his client find a 3-bedroom house in the 85,000 to 200 price range. A seller comes into the licensee office and signs a listing agreement to sell a 2-bedroom condominium for 170,000. Based on this fact, which of the statement is true? Because both the seller, the buyer and the sellers are the licensee client, the licensee owes the fiduciary duty of an agent to both. In a township of 36 section, which statement is true? Section 16 lies to the north of section 21. A licensee represent a seller is asked, a licensee representing the seller is asked by the client to make sure that the deed does not reveal the actual sales price. In this case, the licensee may ask that a deed be prepared that shows only nominal consideration of $10. A broker obtained a listing agreement to act as the agent in the sale of a house. A buyer has been found for the property and all agreement has been signed. As an agent for the seller, the broker is responsible for which activity? Making sure that the buyer receives copies of all documents the seller is required to deliver to the buyer. Which component is among those an appraisal would use in comparing a cost approach appraisal? Estimate the replacement cost of the improvement. Action permitted under the Georgia Fair Housing Law affecting people with disability include all of the following: a landlord discriminating by denying apartment to tenant without disability in the building, renting units to only person with disability, a landlord requiring that any modification made by a disabled tenant that limit the general marketability of the property may be returned to the original condition, a landlord refusing to rent to a person whose disability is addiction to an illegal substance, except a landlord increasing the security deposit for a person with disability because he or she will have to make modification to the property. An item of functional obsolescence is considered incurable if the cost to repair is more than the value it's at. Property taxes in Georgia are known as ad valorem taxes, meaning the tax is based on the property value, on the value of the property. A couple living in Georgia wishes to exercise the clause in their lease that allow a tenant to buy the property at a future time by stating a sale price and applying the rent payment to the price of the property. This is known as the lease purchase clause. How far back does a normal Georgia title search goes? 50 years back. A couple has married on June 15, 2005. On June 2002, the husband purchased Brackridge. On October 10, 2006, the wife inherited Y acre. In February 2007, the husband purchased a summer farm. Under the marital law of Georgia, and assuming that all the property described is real estate, which best describe the interest held by the couple. The husband owns Blackacre and Summer Farm, and the wife owns Whiteacre. An auctioneer who auctions real estate must have both a real estate salesperson or broker's license, and an auctioneer's license. The primary purpose of a real estate education, research, and recovery fund is to compensate consumers who suffer damages from a licensee and are not able to recover them through normal legal channels. Several years ago, a condominium unit was the site of a highly publicized murder. After the murder, the unit was purchased to an elderly lady who contacted aid from a blood transfusion and died in the unit. The unit is currently listed for sale with a real estate broker. The broker knows of both the murder and the AIDS-related death. She knows the unit she shows the unit to a potential buyer who asks her if there was ever been a murder in the condominium. The broker must disclose the murder, but it is not obligated to disclose the AIDS-related death. Which of the following action does the Georgia Real Estate Commission not have the authority to do? To set brokerage fee licensee can charge. A woman owns a company that provides services to 3 condominium development in Georgia. She collects the monthly condominium fee, hires the landscaping companies, supervises the move in and move out, and conducts all the business for the homeowners association. This woman required to have a community association manager's license. Which individual does not need a sales associate license? An attorney, in fact, acting under duly executed power of attorney to convey real estate from an owner or a lessor. A Georgia broker deposit earnest money check into her general business account in order to maintain a minimum balance and earnest money. After the check clears, she writes a check into her escrow accounts and accounts to the buyer for all proceed. Is the broker engaging in an unfair practice? Yes, because earnest money must be deposited directly into an escrow or trust account.